Hey there! Today we're jumping into a really significant announcement that just hit the ASX. It's from a company called Duratec, and they've landed a massive contract that's directly tied into that big AUKUS security pact. So let's break down what's going on. Here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll hit the big headline numbers. Then, we'll look at who's actually running the show. After that, we'll dig into what the project is and why it's happening now. We'll also get a bit of background on Duratec itself, cover a very important legal bit, and then I'm going to wrap things up with a question for you. All right, let's dive right in. When you see an announcement like this, the first thing everybody wants to know is, well, how much is it worth? And the number is a big one. We're talking about a total contract value of just under $300 million. Now, that figure is actually a combination of a main $281 million contract, plus from earlier work they did for things like site prep and buying materials. You know, for a company this size, that is an absolutely game-changing figure.
And I want to be super clear about something. Everything we're talking about today, every single detail, comes straight from this official announcement right here. We're not reading between the lines or adding any of our own opinions. We're just laying out the facts as the company has presented them.
So, who exactly landed this massive project? If you read the announcement, you'll see this acronym, DEJV. What in the world is that? Let's figure it out. Okay, so here's a really interesting twist. The contract wasn't just handed to one company. It actually went to what's called a joint venture. It's a 50-50 partnership between Duratec and another company called Airtech. This is actually a pretty common way to handle huge government projects like this. It lets them pool their resources, share the risk, and bring different skills to the table. All right, so we know who's doing the work and we know how much it's for, but what exactly are they building for nearly $300 million? Let's get into the details of the project itself. So here's the bottom line. This is all about major upgrades to the HMAS Stirling naval base over in Western Australia. The focus is on a specific spot called Diamantina Wharf, and the whole point is to get it ready for future submarine operations. The main build is set to take about 2 years, and the announcement is very clear that the reason this is all happening is to prepare for rotational forces from the US and the UK as part of that AUKUS deal. And to get a feel for what this means to the company, just take a look at this quote from their managing director, Chris Oates. He calls it a huge milestone and really emphasizes their pride in supporting Australia's defense capability. You can tell this is a big deal for them. Now, with a contract of this scale, it's probably a good idea to just quickly zoom out and ask, so who is Duratec anyway? Well, they're a pretty major Australian contractor. You can find them on the ASX with the ticker DUR. They basically specialize in protecting and fixing up big, important assets. Defense is obviously a huge area for them, but they also do a ton of work in infrastructure, mining, and energy. And even though their headquarters are in WA, they operate all across the country. Okay, before we go any further, we have to pause for a second and cover some very important legal stuff. Please pay close attention to this next part. So I need to be perfectly clear. This explainer is just for your information. It's for educational purposes. It is absolutely not financial advice or a recommendation to buy or sell anything. All the information we've discussed comes straight from that public ASX announcement, and it should never be the only thing you use to make an investment decision. Please, always do your own homework and talk to a qualified professional. All right, with that very important point out of the way, let's finish up by thinking about the bigger picture here. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. When a country decides to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on a very specific piece of military hardware with a 2-year construction timeline, what does that really tell you about its long-term strategic thinking and priorities? I'd genuinely love to hear what you think, so please drop your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks so much for tuning in.